You think an aura is about standing tall, wearing black, and projecting a cold, emotionless stare. You believe that to be intimidating, you must act like a sociopath, rejecting all human connection to prove your independence. That is a costume for the weak. This misconception has poisoned an entire generation seeking power. They watched movies about ruthless billionaires and dangerous men, saw the aesthetic of detachment, and confused the surface for the substance. They began practicing their blank stares in mirrors. They trained themselves to respond to compliments with a shrug. They built walls so high that nothing, not admiration, not vulnerability, not genuine human warmth, could penetrate them. And in doing this, they achieved exactly what they were trying to avoid. They became utterly powerless. The cold, emotionless approach is the strategy of someone who is terrified of being controlled. It's a defensive posture, not an offensive one, and everyone can sense that fear. When you reject all human warmth, you're not projecting strength. You're projecting terror masquerading as confidence. Real power doesn't need that costume because real power operates from a different principle entirely. Here's what you need to understand. Humans are not logical creatures who respect what they can't feel. They are emotional creatures who follow what makes them feel something. The mistake isn't in engaging emotion, it's in being predictable with it. The weakness isn't in showing warmth, it's in showing warmth consistently, on demand, like a trained dog responding to a command. This is where the concept of unpredictable warmth enters. Imagine two scenarios. In the first, a leader is consistently cold to everyone around them. People fear them, yes, but it's a distant intellectual fear. They comply out of obligation, not devotion. They leave the moment they find an alternative. In the second scenario, a leader alternates between moments of genuine, almost overwhelming warmth, where you feel truly seen and valued by them, and sudden, complete detachment where you're invisible to them. There's no explanation for the shift. It's not punishment, it's simply as if you've ceased to exist in their awareness. Which leader do you think people become obsessed with? Which one do they spend sleepless nights analyzing, trying to decode what they did wrong or right? Which one do they desperately try to win back? This isn't cruelty, it's psychology. B.F. Skinner spent decades studying reinforcement patterns, and his most significant discovery was this: variable rewards create the strongest conditioning. A rat will press a lever infinitely more times if it receives food randomly than if it receives food every single time. The unpredictability creates obsession. The same principle applies to human psychology. When someone's approval is guaranteed, it has no power. When it's unpredictable, when you might receive genuine warmth or complete indifference, depending on factors they can't quite grasp, they become addicted to the possibility of regaining it. This is the mechanism behind true psychological dominance. You're not rejecting human connection, you're strategically deploying it. You're not being cold because you're afraid of emotion. You're using coldness as punctuation, as contrast, as the silence between notes that makes the music audible. The person who maintains constant emotional distance has made themselves a known quantity. People understand them, predict them, and therefore can navigate around them. But the person who oscillates between genuine warmth and absolute indifference becomes a mystery. They become someone you cannot quite figure out, which means you cannot quite control them, which means you must constantly adjust your approach to them. They've reversed the dynamic. Now you are trying to win their approval, not the other way around. This requires something that cold, emotionless people have trained themselves to eliminate: the capacity for authentic warmth. True unpredictable warmth cannot be faked. It must be real, genuine, and felt, which means you must retain your humanity. You must still be capable of connection, of people, of creating moments where someone feels genuinely seen by you. These moments are more powerful precisely because they come from someone who could withhold them at any moment. The paradox is this: to achieve power through unpredictability, you cannot become the emotionless automaton you see in movies. You must become more human, not less. You must have the emotional range to feel genuine warmth, the psychological sophistication to deploy it strategically, and the detachment to withdraw it completely when necessary. You must be simultaneously warm and capable of coldness, available and utterly unreachable. This is not the costume of weakness. This is the architecture of dominance. Now that you understand the first principle, that power flows through strategic unpredictability rather than constant coldness, you're ready to build the complete framework. True dominance isn't built on a single pillar. It's constructed through the precise alignment of multiple principles that reinforce one another, creating a presence so formidable that people bend toward you without understanding why. The first pillar is what we call frictionless superiority. This is the art of achieving exceptional results while making everything appear effortless. Most people expose their struggle. They show you the late nights, the failed attempts, the grueling process. They believe this transparency will earn respect. Instead, it breeds sympathy, and sympathy is a cage. When people see you struggle, they begin to see you as one of them, understandable, relatable, finite. But when someone achieves extraordinary things without visibly struggling, something shifts in how people perceive them. They begin to assume you're simply different, superior by nature, not by effort. This assumption is more powerful than any amount of bragging could ever be. A master chess player doesn't explain their strategy after winning. A master surgeon doesn't detail every decision. They simply produce results that appear inevitable, as though the outcome was never in doubt. This is frictionless superiority, and it creates the perception that you operate on a different level entirely. The second pillar is complete detachment from others' opinions. This is where most people fail, because they confuse this principle with the false coldness we debunked earlier. Detachment from opinion doesn't mean rejecting human connection. It means becoming immune to the leverage that provides. Consider how compliments and insults function. A compliment is an attempt to control you through positive reinforcement. When you deeply need someone's approval, that compliment has power over you. You'll modify your to receive more of it. An insult is an attempt to control you through negative reinforcement. When you fear, that insult wounds you, and you'll adjust to avoid future criticism. Both are forms of control. But what happens when you genuinely don't need anyone's approval? When a compliment arrives, you receive it with grace but without hunger. When an insult comes, it passes through you like wind through an empty room. You've removed the hooks. Now people cannot pull you in either direction. This immunity creates something magnetic, mystery. You become untouchable not because you're cold, but because you're genuinely indifferent to the tools they use to control others. This indifference is terrifying to people because it removes their power. And fear of the unknown always exceeds fear of the known. A person who might be hurt by an insult can be managed. A person who is completely unmoved by that person is dangerous. That person is free. The third pillar is the sovereign individual, someone who operates as a self-contained system. This means needing nothing from anyone. Not validation, not resources, not emotional support, not even companionship. When you genuinely need nothing, you've achieved the ultimate power position because the only leverage others have over you is the threat of withdrawal, and you've already withdrawn from needing them. This doesn't mean you don't have relationships or ambitions. It means your fundamental sense of worth and stability comes from within, not from external sources. You might choose to be generous, to invest in people, to build alliances, but these choices come from abundance and strategy, not desperation. People can sense the difference. They know whether you're reaching out because you need them or because you're choosing to include them. One creates obligation, the other creates gratitude and deeper investment. When these three pillars align, frictionless superiority, immunity to, and complete independence, they create an aura so powerful that people unconsciously reorganize themselves around you. They compete for your attention. They modify there to maintain your regard. They tell themselves stories about your superiority that have nothing to do with manipulation and everything to do with their own perception of reality. But there is a cost you must understand. This path is profoundly lonely. You cannot be easily understood because you operate through paradox. You cannot find comfort in ordinary social bonds because most people cannot access the level you occupy. You will sacrifice the ease of being known, the comfort of vulnerability, the warmth of unconditional acceptance. The people closest to you will sometimes resent the distance you maintain. The world will interpret your independence as coldness. You will walk through life as someone perpetually apart. This is not weakness. This is the price of sovereignty. The choice is yours, comfort or power. Most people choose comfort. They choose the safety of being ordinary, the warmth of being easily understood, the ease of needing and being needed. There is no shame in this choice, but if you've read this far, you already suspect you're not most people. If you choose power, understand what you're building. A life lived at a different frequency, where your aura becomes a force that shapes reality around you, where people become devoted not because they understand you, but because they sense something in you they cannot quite grasp, where your mere presence reorganizes the of those around you. That is the architecture of true dominance, and it is built from within.